So today, we're diving into a really ambitious new civic idea called Project 2026. With America's 250th anniversary right around the corner, this project is being framed as a citizens' moonshot for national renewal. So what's that all about? Let's get into it.
Okay, so the whole project really kicks off from this one big idea, that America is at a critical turning point. It's basically asking a huge question. After almost 250 years, how does the country actually live up to the promises it was founded on?
And this quote right here, this is the bedrock. The whole philosophy is built on this idea from Tocqueville. The thinking is, you don't judge how healthy a democracy is just by looking at its government. No, you measure it by what regular citizens are doing, how involved and active they are. That's the gold standard.
Right, but if citizen engagement is the vital sign, what happens when the patient is sick? The project points to what it sees as some really troubling symptoms. Things like deep political division, trust in our institutions hitting rock bottom, and this general feeling that everyday people just don't have a say anymore. And all of that leads to this feeling, this gap between the founding ideals of the country and what life is actually like for a lot of people today. Project 2026 calls this the unfinished revolution, and that's the problem it's trying to solve.
So what's the plan? How do you tackle something that big? Well, Project 2026 pitches itself as a new kind of moonshot. But this time, we're not aiming for space. The target is renewing American civic life, right here on the ground. At its heart, this is a national experiment. It's led by its founder, Shimon Waldfogel, and the mission is pretty clear. Take those timeless ideals from 1776 and figure out how to make them work for real people right now in the 21st century.
Now, the philosophy behind this is really interesting. It comes from this powerful idea in health sciences called salutogenesis. Instead of just asking what's wrong or what's broken, this approach flips the script. It asks, what actually creates health in the first place? So the project applies that exact same logic to democracy. The focus shifts from constantly fighting fires to building the conditions where civic health can just flourish. And this forward-thinking approach is built on three big pillars. These three ideas are the framework for everything the project does. So here they are: democracy, opportunity, and citizenship. Now, the key thing to get is that they see these three as totally interconnected. You can't have one without the others. Democracy isn't just about showing up to vote. It's a way of life. Opportunity isn't just a buzzword. It's about creating the actual conditions for people to do well, starting from the moment they're born. And citizenship, that's not just a piece of paper. It's something you do, a daily practice. Each one feeds the others. Okay, so that's the big vision. It sounds great, right? But how do you actually turn these huge ideas into something real? Let's look at the strategy. One of the project's most focused areas is what they call life trajectories. And the argument here is incredibly powerful. It says that a child's entire future, their whole path in life, can be put on a completely different track in just the first 1,000 days. Things like poverty and stress can create what's called a delayed trajectory, while having the right support creates a healthy trajectory.
But here's the absolute crucial point. The project argues this isn't about fate or bad luck. It's the result of systems, of policies. And since people design those systems, people can redesign them. That's where the real power to make a change is.
So here's what some of that redesign work actually looks like on the ground. They're working on policy focused on those first 1,000 days. There's a really local pilot program in Pennsylvania called Thrive in Montco. There's a citizen toolbox, which is all about giving people actual guides and data. And there's an initiative to try and shift the entire conversation for the 2026 election toward big, long-term challenges.
And none of this is happening randomly. It's all guided by this very deliberate 7-step strategy. You can see it starts with that big vision, but look at the steps in the middle. Organization frameworks, crowdsourcing, deliberating. It's all about bringing people into the process before you start designing the solutions. It's a structured approach to changing the system from the inside out.
This whole strategy is inspired by some really powerful thinking from a theorist named Donella Meadows. Now, there's a lot on this chart, so don't worry about the details. Just look at that scale on the side. The basic idea is that some ways of changing a system are way, way more powerful than others. And Project 2026 isn't messing around with this small stuff at the bottom. They're aiming right for the top.
And that brings us to the highest point of leverage on that chart. This is the ultimate goal. We're not just talking about changing a few rules or tweaking a budget. The goal is to change the paradigm, the entire mindset that the system grows out of. It's about shifting our thinking from constantly managing crises to proactively building well-being. So this brings us full circle, back to the project's real purpose, thinking about and then building a totally different kind of future. This quote from Buckminster Fuller, which the project uses, just nails their philosophy. You don't win by fighting what's already there. You win by building something new, something better, something that makes the old way of doing things just irrelevant. It's all about building, not just battling. And that leaves us with the project's own central, provocative question. It's really a call to action designed to get us to stop talking about what's broken and start imagining what's possible. And it leaves us all to think about our own part in building the country we actually want to live in.